Hi, everybody. Welcome to the press, and welcome to a combined Monday and Tuesday show where we're going to go over the model for the Valero Texas Open this week. We'll talk about horses for courses. We'll talk about picks, first clicks. We'll try to kind of put the Monday and Tuesday shows together. It's a bit of an odd week. It was last week as well. Last week at the Houston Open, Stephen Yeager won as a 40 or 50 to 1 shot, depending on where you went and looked. We had him 16th in our model, which we will go over the top 10 here, plus a couple of extra players because we do have a pretty good field this week at TPC San Antonio. Talk about course fits. We'll talk about horses for courses. It's also a bit of a strange week this week. I'm traveling. I'm in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, visiting some family on my kids' spring break. Last week, I was at home on the Monday show and then traveling the rest of the week, and it just kind of threw everything off. So we'll be back home on Friday this week. We'll have a full slate of shows for you from the Masters, of course. Lots to talk about there, although, as we have talked about on this show, the reality is there are not many players who can actually win the Masters tournament. And the data tells that story extremely well, but we'll get to that next week. So today we're going to combine, again, like I said, the Monday and Tuesday show. We'll talk about the table, the odds to win, talk about the model, we'll talk about horses for courses, and current form, so players who are playing well at the moment. Now, one thing I did realize in looking at my data set is how not random this tournament is, but that the players who are your horses for courses wouldn't be horses for courses many other places. Charlie Hoffman's a great example. This is the Charlie Hoffman Open. He literally had shirts made that explained how many millions of dollars he's won at this tournament. Matt Kuchar is another, and we'll get to him. He's having a terrible year on the PGA Tour. He's getting up there in years. He's in his mid-40s. That's when you kind of start to decline. But if you look at this tournament, the last 4 years, he's been part of the top 15. You go, okay, well, surely you have to like him, even though he's made 2 of 8 cuts or whatever it is this year. And it's one of those kinds of courses. TPC San Antonio's Oaks course is a Greg Norman design. I personally, as a golfer, do not care for Greg Norman designs. I find them often very contrived. There's a bunker in the middle of the green in one of the par threes. That was cool at Riviera because it was unique at the time. Just replicating it at TPC San Antonio, not so much. Greg Norman loves a split fairway, loves an elevated green. Those kinds of things are his jam when he's trying to design for tour players. You see his design at the end of the season on the DP World Tour in Dubai, and you see a lot of the same types of holes, same concepts here. Pretty large greens, so you got plenty of space to hit. In terms of the result set, you don't see a lot of preference toward a longer hitter, which I think is interesting because Greg Norman was a very long hitter for his time and was a long hitter objectively. And as player architects do not always. Ben Crenshaw is a great exception to that rule, but there are player architects who tend to design toward their strength. Like Jack Nicklaus forever designed to his strength, which was a high cut, and then he kind of started to get away from that later in his career when everyone realized that's exactly how he would design the golf course he was designing for you. But Greg Norman's strength is driving the crap out of the golf ball. Yet still, if you look at the results set here, Corey Connors is not a long hitter. He's won twice here, 2019 last year. J.J. Spawn's won here, not a long hitter. Charlie Hoffman's won here, certainly not a long hitter. You look down the list of champions and go, all right, well, Spieth won here, not a long hitter. You don't need to be a great driver of the golf ball to win here. Doesn't hurt to be a great driver of the golf ball anywhere, really, except maybe Harbor Town. But this golf course, you do not have to have that to be successful. So keep that in mind when we're talking about the field this week. Let's start with the model, and then we'll get into the table, the odds board for this week, because this is what you're here for, right? We give away this top 10 here on this show for free because I don't think there's really a whole lot of conjecture about who would be in the top 10 most weeks, or at least who would be approximately in the top 10. And then the rest is available for our membership, golfnewsnet.com. Click on the join button, sign up. It's $40 a year. Or if you're thinking you're just doing this for a Masters pool next week, Wait a week, you can sign up for $10. I would sign up on Tuesday of Masters Week. So you would get effectively 2 weeks for free. You would get the Masters Tournament and Harbor Town. I'm just telling you how to game my own system. But if you were to do it for 1 week at $10, I would sign up on a Tuesday, get all the content, then you'd get Monday and Tuesday of next week, which means if you did it late enough in the afternoon, and I'm being serious, if you did it like 4 p.m. in the afternoon, you signed up on a Tuesday afternoon before Masters Week, you would get the model for next week too. So just telling you how to do it if you wish to do it. Or you can just sign up for $40 and get the whole year. You get all the majors, get everything else. We have 20 tools. They're fantastic. Okay, here's our top 10. Rory McIlroy is number one, and he's not number one by as much as you might think, given that he's an exceptional player, but he's not. And then Hideki Matsuyama is number two, already won this year. I'm really not entirely sure why he's playing this week. This is a good field, by the way. It's like 18, 19 of the world top 50 you're playing. And that doesn't typically turn out to be the case for the Texas Open. So part of me they have a long-term extension in place for this tournament, so I'm not sure exactly what's doing it. Maybe it's a make good a little bit for this event. I don't know exactly, but the field is good. Matsuyama is second. Max Homa is third. Nikolai Højgaard is fourth, and that's partially a lack of results set on the PGA Tour. He has not played his best golf recently, but he did earlier in the year. I do think this golf course suits him very well. Matt Fitzpatrick is fifth. Corey Connors is sixth, although he's not playing well. He's won here twice. Grayson Murray's seventh. He does not have a lot of starts, relatively speaking, but he does show up and he's already won. So that one surprised me a bit. Keith Mitchell, 8th. Alex Noren, 9th. Russell Henley, 10th. Billy Horschel, 11th. So Austin Eckroat, 12th. Ludwig Oberg, 13th. So there's your kind of top 13-ish players. None of those are especially surprising given that they're good players, right? Or winners recently, or have won this event recently. So that kind of all tracks. Maybe some players you might be interested in, and I'll just give them away anyway. Spieth is 22nd. Ricky Barnes is 25th. Bud Cauley might be an interesting play this week. He's 27th. But there is a pretty decent spread from good player to bad player. Generally speaking, most years, this is a weird year, but most years, the winner in our model is in the top 20, usually top 15. This has been a weird year, so there's been some adjustment in terms of expectation, I suppose. When you don't have a lot of winners who are under 40 to 1 or 50 to 1, you're just going to be unlikely to nail those guys. That's just the way it works. Wyndham Clark's maybe a notable exception. We did talk about Chris Kirk, notable exception. That's why we told you to bet him at the Century. But like Nick Dunlap, he doesn't have a result set. Matthew Bavondon. So it's an interesting year for trying to figure out how to make the model a little bit better. But we have included more events, more of a look back of events in terms of current form to add to the model and weight it a little bit more, so we can be a little bit more on top of maybe players who are starting to peak, kind of come out of a trough perhaps. In the short term, it might be 100 to 1, 200 to 1 kind of fine. But if you look at this list, other than like a Grayson Murray who's a long shot, Taylor Montgomery's probably your next closest true long shot at 100 to 1, and he is playing better golf recently, so may want to consider looking at him this week. Now, we do want to talk a little bit about the current form, horses for courses type folks this week. Again, there's not a whole lot to work with here. There are some players who are good in terms of absolute current form. Billy Horschel, Marty Laird, Cage Lee. Those guys played well twice recently. 2 top 15 finishes. Marty Laird had one in the Puerto Rico Open, so that's kind of coming off the books pretty soon. The others, Billy Horschel, I think, is a guy certainly to look out for. He models well, has a good short game. Short game isn't too huge here, but it can save you a lot. He has that. It can kind of make up for your lack of strokes gained off the tee in some ways. But if you're looking for a horse for course here, as we talked about earlier, it's Matt Kuchar, and then it's Corey Connors. And I think you have to take Matt Kuchar with a grain of salt because he's played terribly this year. And you have to make the choice of whether you think someone like Matt Kuchar can just turn back the clock and play really well. And he absolutely can. I'm not saying he can't. He's an exceptionally skilled player. Charlie Hoffman, same kind of thing. Incredible week at the Phoenix Open, nearly gets the job done, effectively saves his status, drastically improves it for the year. He has not been as good here in recent memory because he's an older player. But could he pop it out here? Yeah, maybe. In terms of more contemporaneous, good play here, those are two in the last 5 years. Now remember, we didn't have this tournament in 2020. It was one of those canceled tournaments, part of the COVID stoppage. Ben On, Lucas Glover, Siwoo Kim, Chris Kirk, who's not here, and Gary Woodland. So, there aren't a lot of players to work with in terms of looking for either a current form or a horse for course play. That makes this week particularly tricky. That the course is kind of open to anybody makes it kind of tricky. If you do want to look at kind of a course fit view of the Valero Texas Open and TPC San Antonio's Oaks course, this is an interesting split. It's 30% putting, 70% tee to green. So a lot more favor toward the skill set of Greg Norman, right? 18% off the tee, 36% on the approach. You gain your strokes by hitting the right tiers and right locations on the green on this golf course. And then you gain your strokes putting. You got to be able to putt pretty well from the mid-range because it is hard to get the ball close on a lot of these holes. The par threes are tricky. They're kind of long in spots, 190, 220 yards. So you're hitting tough shots into the par threes. It asks a lot of you. But if you, in terms of looking for fits, you got Matt Wallace, Marty Laird, Alex Noren, Keith Mitchell. I do like Keith Mitchell quite a bit this week. And trying to identify a player that kind of checks all the boxes, I don't think you have one here. There's no kind of like, you got to bet this guy. I mean, Steven Yeager popped out last week because he likes Memorial Park. Despite his relative lack of length, he likes the golf course. So he's been playing okay, but he's a hard guy to bet because he's never won on the PGA Tour. And if Scotty Scheffler had made that 5-foot putt in the final hole of regulation, I'm pretty well convinced Scotty Scheffler would have won 3 in a row. He would have won the playoff. But that's not how golf works. So, Steven Yeager won. But when you're getting into a tournament like this and you start thinking, well, do I have to start considering betting people that I would not normally bet because they haven't won before? I guess that's up to you. I guess I didn't really have much action last week. I like Jake Knapp a lot, and he missed the cut by 1. I've been getting crushed in one and done by guys missing the cut by a stroke, even though they're playing well. It's a really annoying game. That's why I kind of like these types of bets better because at least usually you bet guys who get to the weekend. You don't typically get crushed if you bet 4 or 5 players. You got some kind of thing to think about going to the weekend unless you got it totally wrong. But the card this week will also be pretty light because the tournament is just difficult to predict. That all said, let's look at where we are today, Tuesday morning, in terms of the odds board. Rory McIlroy's 9-1, Sully Open 10-1. I don't mind betting Rory here this week. He has a unique quality of winning before the majors. He's won before all 3 other majors before. That's a weird kind of slam he could complete here if he wins this tournament this week, winning the week before a major. I don't think that's what he wants to do. I don't think anyone wants to win this week. That's a good player that has a real chance of winning. And the reason for that is there's only been, a couple people in the history of the Masters that's ever won the week prior and then gone on to win. And Phil is that guy. And he did that in 2006 when he had that 2-driver strategy. He won Duluth, Georgia, and then won the Masters. So typically you're not trying to win the week before. You're trying to work something out. You're trying to get your game right, peak at the right time, as they say. So part of my reluctance to bet this week is knowing that him or Ludwig Oberg, he's playing great golf. He's number 9 in the world. He's 12-1. He does not really want to win this week. That's almost sacrilege trying to win this tournament if you think you got a shot to win the Masters. Jordan Spieth is 20-1. Hideki Matsuyama is 20-1. Again, I don't see a reason for them to try to play well. Spieth won this tournament a couple years ago, and it meant something to him to win in Texas, to win again, and that's fine. But I don't think it means quite much to him. Matsuyama's 20-1. He's already won at Riviera. If you don't have any action on him for the Masters, don't do it this week. Bet it on him for next week. Don't waste your money. If he wins here, okay, but why don't you go and save that for your Masters pool, your Calcuttas if you got those. Just avoid. Max Homa 22-1. Okay, fine. He doesn't really play this tournament. He's playing good golf. Again, tune-up. Matt Fitzpatrick playing okay golf, 25-1. Corey Connors 25-1, but hasn't played really well since winning, so I would avoid. Colin Morikawa, he hasn't played his best golf, but what we've seen has been pretty good at times. Kind of alternates good starts and bad starts. Same with Fitzpatrick. Tommy Fleetwood's 30-1. Ben On's 30-1. I think a lot of people are going to bet Ben On this week, and for good reason. Alex Noren, I think, is a reasonable bet at 30-1. Some people are going to bet Harris English at 35. I'm cool with that. Harmon's 35 because he missed the cut of Valspar. Probably would otherwise be higher. Might be some good value there. Billy Horschel 35-1. I do like quite a bit. Playing good golf, good short game. Adam Scott 40-1 pass. Russell Henley 45-1. I am interested in. Bezaden Hoyt 45-1. I'm interested in. They're playing good golf. Bezaden Hoyt more recently than Henley, but Henley does have good results. McNeely, Cole, Tom Kim, Bo Hostler all 50-1. I do like McNeely, and if we're going to ride the guy that should have won by now but hasn't trained, he's the next horse. It's McNeely or Eric Cole. And I don't think Cole's playing well lately. McNeely is in a way, but not brilliantly. He did play very well at the Players, though. There's got to be some good that comes of that, although I feel like that I say that every year when someone finishes in the top 10, top 5 at Sawgrass, and then they just don't do it again for a while. The Players is a hard tournament to use as momentum bait in terms of betting because it's just one of those courses where you could play you could play your best golf and it just doesn't translate after that. So you got to be careful thinking about that. Denny McCarthy's 55-1, making cuts, cashing checks a lot of the weeks, but nothing spectacular. But he is the best putter on the PGA Tour. And at 30%, that can be helpful here. That it doesn't reward a bomber. It doesn't reward being particularly accurate off the tee. That can work for him. Aaron Rai, a lot of people are going to like 55-1. Batia, a lot of people are going to like. He's so inconsistent. But he is playing well this second. Okay, Keith Mitchell, 65, I think is a great value. I think Lucas Glover is a great value at 75-1. Playing pretty good golf recently. Has some good results on this golf course. Has nothing to play for, but he also knows he's probably not going to win the Masters, so why not try here? Occasionally 75-1 with Davis Thompson. Brendan Todd, I think, is a cool play at 75. Adam Schenk might be as well. Nikolai Højgaard, man, I wish he were just playing a little bit better currently. Because first of all, this number wouldn't be 75-1. He'd be like 45-1. But if he can put it together, he can win. It's just why hasn't he put it together? Taylor Montgomery and Eric Van Rooyen at 80-1. I do like Doug Gim, Davis Riley, Ben Griffin. I'll skip 180-1. Mark Hubbard at 90-1 I like over Patrick Rogers, Lee Hodges. Bud Cauley at 90-1 is interesting. Austin Eckroat at 90-1 is very interesting to me. I think he could win twice. I don't see why he can't. I think he's a guy worth looking at for sure. Sam Ryder, Andrew Novak are your hundreds. Victor Perez, Ryo Hisetsun, who I like at 110-1. Ryan Moore, Ricky Fowler, man, tumble right back down. Max Greiserman, Kevin Yu, Chandler Phillips played very well at the Valspar Championship, all 110-1. Of those, I take Hisetsun, but that's up to you. And then we'll go down to 150 just to round it all out. So your 130s are a lot of players. Taylor Pendrith, Seamus Power, Ryan Fox, Nate Lashley, Matty Schmid. I like more 250-1 than 130-1. Matt Kuchar, there you go. Marty Laird, okay, playing okay recently. That might be worth a flyer. Charlie Hoffman, Cam Champ, Alejandro Tosti, too inconsistent to follow. Adam Svensson, Torbjorn Olesen, and that's it. So I think I would probably live with any bets I make this week in the 75 to 85-1 range. Unfortunately, I'm in South Carolina. You can't bet legally here. And so I'm just sitting with a nice account balance on DraftKings. Can't do anything about it. So this is one of those few weeks where I can't actually put my money where my mouth is. But so be it. At least we'll be able to do it next week for the Masters. Hopefully hit some good ones there. I think we could be due. Either one of two things is going to happen at Augusta, in my view. You're going to get Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, Joaquin Niemann, Brooks, like one, maybe even Rory, like one of those players you absolutely should expect to win. Or it's going to be loco, and you're going to get a 70, 80, 90 to 1 shot that's going to pull this thing off. And I think we'll get some numbers this week that'll help because we do have some top players playing. But if you're trying to crunch the numbers on the long shots that you might like, we went through this exercise I think 2 weeks ago trying to talk about players that are gaining a lot of strokes in the calendar year, in the last, basically since February. And if you're looking at that list now, we really don't have a lot to work with. I mean, we really, really don't. They're not there. They're really not there. It's hard to try to find players who are in the field, who are playing frequently, and who also are basically gaining 1.5, a little bit more than 1.5 strokes tee to green per round this year. There just aren't many of them. It's Scotty Scheffler, Hideki Matsuyama, Adam Schenk is actually an interesting guy, but he's a newcomer. I mean, there just aren't many of them, and it's a real problem against how you would normally think about this field, because in the last 10, 12 years, I mean, that's your player. Those are the people that you want, players who are gaining 1.5 strokes per round on average, tee to green. If you lower that threshold to 1.2, now you've got a Wyndham Clark, you've got a Tony Finau, you've got a Siwoo Kim, which is actually really interesting. Shane Lowry's in there. We've already mentioned Hideki. You've got Scotty Scheffler, of course. And that's your list. And that if that's it, we're going to get a weird one. It's either Scotty Scheffler or a really weird one. So keep that in mind. That, of course, systems don't always work, right? That's not universal. It doesn't happen every time. And sometimes you get weird years where you throw out the traditional strategy. I would choose to keep it. Maybe you look at Wyndham Clark. Maybe you look at Siwoo Kim. I probably will bet Siwoo Kim now looking at this list. I'll probably bet Shane Lowry now looking at this list. I'm definitely betting Scotty Scheffler at least to have as a hedge, just to cover my bets for the week. Even if he wins at 5-1, 4-1, probably covers most of my bets for the week, if not all of them. So almost kind of have to have it as a hedge. So it's a tough week this week to want to bet because, of course, it's tricky. I think you live in the 75 to 85, maybe 100 to 1 range. Hope something hits, bet light. Then you get to the Masters. You try to look for, I think, again, try to have your game plan, your story of the tournament before you start betting. And if you disagree with my vision that it could be either the best in the world, who's having the best year, or it's someone crazy. And I guess Hideki, in terms of quality of performance, Wyndham quality of performance, those guys would be best in the world right now, right? Those aren't wacky winners. Hideki Matsuyama's won there. Wyndham Clark's won a major already. So we're not worried about that outcome. But even Shane Lowry, I don't think you throw into totally wacky because he's won a major championship. He's done a lot. And he's shown that he can play well at Augusta National. But if you think, okay, well, I'm just looking for long shots here, I think then you got to start fishing pretty hard because the value is gone for the most part out of the marketplace unless you think about, like, Siwoo Kim is probably your best value left if you want to have a value play for the week. So just think about that. We'll have the model for the Masters ready on Monday. Like, everything will be ready on Monday for the major championship week. We'll have all that ready to roll. So that way you don't have to think about it. I don't have to think about it. We just have it out there and we can start talking based on the results from Sunday added in. But you can kind of guess who will be the top of the model. I don't think it's any shocker. It's going to be Scotty Scheffler. And then you have to figure out how you want to play beyond that. And that's the trick here. All right, that's going to do it for us today on the show. Tomorrow we're going to talk just ever so briefly about the PGA Tour, Korn Ferry Tour rather, because they are in Savannah, Georgia. They're at the Club Car Championship, the Landings Club. Got a couple of plays there perhaps for you. We've got the LPGA's T-Mobile Match Play in Las Vegas. Different style tournament, not a total match play event. 96 players, cut down to 65 after 2 rounds, then cut down to 8 after 3 rounds based on aggregate score. Then you've got a match play component. I think that's very interesting. We'll talk about a little approach to that tomorrow, and then that'll be it for the week. Get a hold of me, Ryan at thegolfnewsnet.com, on Twitter, Threads, X, Instagram, or Blue Sky at Ryan Balaji. I'm on Facebook and YouTube at Ryan Balaji Golf. Join Golf Newsnet for $40 a year at golfnewsnet.com. You got any questions about it, please get a hold of me on the socials or email. I'm happy to talk you through it. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you tomorrow.